In my observation, to an artist, art is more like a verb than a noun. It's something we do. We love to do it so much we sneak off to do it when we're supposed to be doing something else like math or the dishes. But think about kids at the beach. I mean, some artists, native artists, any kind of artist, some artists are told that, if you want to be an artist, you go to art school. Well, maybe you do, but that's secondary. You take a bunch of 4 and 5-year-olds to the beach, any of us, and we all do it. We all make art. We make architecture. Oh, nobody's going to call it architecture, right? We make pictures in the sand. We didn't go to art school. We make up songs that nobody's ever heard before. We dance. We use our imaginations and make drama. 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. And then something happens, Something happens that all of that kind of gets co-opted into the rank and file of school. And most parents do not have the confidence to inspire their kids because they've been made to feel afraid of art. But that's what art is. Any of the great, great artists were doing something natural, And I think that Native people could have an edge in this way. Because even if we've been disconnected from both art and the natural realities of things like everybody else, at least we have a tradition, a longing to retain, to regain, to revitalize the talents that we see in our communities and in ourselves. I've noticed that most of us don't respond well to the gallery owner who tells us, "Oh, that's a masterpiece. How many can you do in an hour?" Art is different from us than it is for the business community. And I know some of you come from the business community or from foundations or companies. And by the way, I would really like to thank our sponsors too. I really would. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity for us to come together. So artists always have this uphill battle going on. We're misperceived from the beginning. We don't talk about it much, but I think we can turn it around. The other elephant in the room is that most people don't know much about Native Americans either. So even if we're not artists, Indigenous people too always have this uphill battle, like artists do, of being misperceived from the beginning. We battle it. We're someone at home. And then we enter the mainstream, and suddenly it's like everybody's real but us. Everybody's standing in front of a mirror together, and everybody else is reflected except us. In a group photo, we either disappear entirely or get kind of mentally photoshopped into an Indian costume or a hula skirt, no matter what we do. You know how it is. I mean, Indian casinos could help a lot with this too. But so far, nobody's come up with a plan as to really bring them on board. I was working with some friends who have a casino in Minnesota, and they had never heard of Native Americans in philanthropy. It took me about 2 years of just hacking away at it, and finally they started to get the message. They didn't know how to do philanthropy. They were afraid they were just going to be swamped by, they didn't know how to do it. They wanted to do it, they wanted to do it well. Since then, their giving has changed a little bit, but most of the casinos, whether you know it or not, even the ones in Indian country, are not employing Native American artists. I mean, they might buy some things to hang on the wall, but when it comes to hiring people for shows, et cetera, oh man, they're hire Vegas acts of non-Indian people. And they really don't see anything wrong with that, because really their model kind of does come from Vegas, and it's about showbiz, dazzling, entertainment, things like that. So they don't really feel secure. They don't really know who the Native artists are. This is a thrust that this organization could do. We could help them to know. Native Americans in Philanthropy is doing some of it, but so far as the arts are concerned, that's not the mandate for Native Americans in Philanthropy. This is something I think we should do. I was a person with a long history of being an Indian, and an even longer history of being an artist, because I knew I was an artist before I knew I was an Indian. And as well, somebody with business, who's involved a lot with business people and foundations. I have gotten pretty good at swimming upstream. And I've also gotten pretty good at recognizing the changing currents. You can just feel it when you do this every day. When I first started putting my own art out in the 1960s, mainstream, I was so naive. And I know a lot of our artists still are, but I mean, I was really green. I had not yet recognized the problem of misperception. It didn't occur to me, and nobody talked about it. I was singing to millions of people in the world about the building of Kinzua Dam, thinking, if only these nice white people in the audience understood our realities, they would want to help make things better. Now, to a certain extent, that was true. And we did make a lot of progress in informing the public. And some people tried to help, and some people tried to help a lot for a while. But it didn't last very long. And in my opinion, just talking even about my own contribution, it wasn't enough. It could have been better, and it still could be good. I mean, talk about naive. I'm the one who sold the rights to Universal Soldier for $1. I really did that. There was a group called the Highwaymen who were coming off a hit called Michael Row the Boat Ashore, right? They had #1 hit. And they came to see me at a little club, and they loved my song, Universal Soldier, and asked me, could they record it? And I said, oh, yeah. And they said, well, who's the publisher? And I was sitting at a table. There were 2 tables together, and a publisher at the next table, at least he said he was a publisher, said, oh, I can help you with that, but we have to make up this little contract, and I have to give you $1. That's what happened. That's what I did. The good news is that 10 years later, I had the money to buy it back for $25,000. And I did it not so much for the money. I mean, the money was already gone. Everybody else had made a lot of money off that song. But because as a writer, as an artist, I really felt that the copyright ought to remain in the hands of the person who creates the work. And in show business, they will try to talk you out of that. When we were founding the Music of Aboriginal Canada category in the Junos, which is equivalent to the US Grammys, as soon as we did it, the sharks in Toronto smelled money. They understood that we have a huge recording industry, Native American recording industry, in First Nations Canada. And immediately, they were out at the powwows with fancy tape recorders, you know, arms around the drum group saying, you know, how'd you like to make a CD? And of course the guys say, yeah. And in the fine print, the artists were giving up rights to the publishing of the songs. That's what it was about. Of course the records get shelved. It's not about the music, it's about the money. There's 2 kinds of show business. There's the show, that's us, and then there's the business. And that's sometimes very sleazy, I'm sad to say.